welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into something that touches every single one of our lives, often without us even realizing it. The security of the information held by our governments. You might have got a headline recently about the Texas Department of Transportation. Back on June 6th, a simple account compromise led to something like 300,000 crash records being accessed and potentially stolen.
Yeah,
It feels like a constant stream of these stories, doesn't it?
it absolutely does. And that TxDOT example is actually a perfect illustration of the challenge we're tackling today.
Right.
Government agencies, from tiny local offices managing historical documents all the way up to massive national departments, are the custodians of a truly staggering amount of incredibly sensitive information about all of us.
Staggering is definitely the right word. We're talking about volumes of data that are hard to even, comprehend sometimes.
Precisely. And our mission in this deep dive is to explore the landscape of this crucial topic using the material we've gathered. We'll figure out why this public data is such a prime target, what common threats agencies are constantly battling, what the very real-world impact is when those defenses fail, and crucially, what steps both agencies and, you, the listener, can take.
Okay, that sounds like a vital deep dive. Let's unpack this complex issue.
Before we jump in fully, we want to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor. This deep dive is sponsored by Stonefly. They're a leader in enterprise storage, backup and disaster recovery, AI storage, and cloud solutions. They understand the critical need for secure storage, especially in environments where data integrity and, ransomware protection are paramount.
Absolutely critical these days.
Yeah. If you're looking for secure, ransomware-proof storage solutions, Stonefly offers solutions like air-gapped storage.
Air-gapped, meaning physically separate, right?
Exactly. Physically isolating backups from the network. And immutable storage, which means data cannot be changed or deleted once it's written.
Super important for integrity.
It is. To learn more about how they can help secure your critical data and to schedule a demo, contact sales@stonefly.com. That's sales@stonefly.com.
All right, let's get started then. Why is government data such a tempting and maybe uniquely vulnerable target? I mean, beyond just the sheer volume, what makes it so valuable to attackers?
Well, what's truly fascinating here is the nature of the information itself. It's not just a large quantity of data. It's data that individuals are often required to provide to interact with society, and it frequently forms the foundation of their verified identity.
You mean like birth certificates or social security numbers?
Yeah.
Stuff you have to give them?
Exactly. Think about what governments collect. National IDs, passport details. We saw examples like the India ICMR breach, where over 815 million records, potentially including these details, were compromised back in 2023.
815 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's names, phone numbers, addresses. In the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation example, it included inmates' PII and PHI.
Whoa, hang on. PII and PHI. Can you just quickly break those down for us? What do they actually mean?
Good point. PII stands for personally identifiable information. Things like your name, address, birth date, phone number, social security number. Basically anything that can directly identify you.
Okay, got it.
And PHI is protected health information. That's your medical records, treatment details, health insurance information. Both are extremely sensitive.
Got it. So governments hold vast amounts of that kind of very personal information.
They absolutely do. We see examples like employee pension records, land records, vitals records, birth and death certificates, property alerts, marriage records, even election documents, as highlighted by examples involving entities like GoUS.
Right.
And then there are things like driver's licenses.
Oh, the driver's licenses. That feels like a particularly big deal. We'll probably come back to that in more detail. But yeah, just thinking about what's on there.
Absolutely. Your name, address, birth date, height, eye color, your signature key, biographical and physical descriptors.
All in one place.
Right. Add to that crash records, like in the TxDOT breach we mentioned, veterans records like those from the U.S. National Archives and Records Administration, and sensitive financial data like tax records from places like Pakistan's Federal Board of Revenue or the South Carolina Department of Revenue. These are really the core elements of a person's financial and civic life.
So it's not just, they have a lot of data. It's like they hold the keys to the kingdom for an individual's identity and finances.
Precisely. This concentration of sensitive, often static, meaning it doesn't change often, and highly verified personal data in government databases makes them incredibly appealing targets for cybercriminals looking to commit, lucrative identity theft and financial fraud.
And it goes beyond just individual records too, doesn't it? There's a bigger, maybe more strategic angle for attackers.
This raises a really critical point, the connection to public trust and national security. When sensitive government data is compromised, it doesn't just affect individuals personally, it erodes the public's trust in the very institutions designed to serve and protect them.
That makes total sense. I mean, if people can't trust that their government can keep their most basic information safe, it kind of undermines the whole foundation of civic life,
It
right?
really does. A breach isn't just a technical failure, it's a failure of public confidence.
Yeah.
And then on the national security front, government agencies hold critical infrastructure details, information about power grids, water supply systems, transportation networks, the essential services we all rely on.
Okay.
The data we've examined highlights that these systems are increasingly targeted by cyber threats. So securing the data about this infrastructure, as well as the operational technology that actually runs it, is crucial for maintaining essential services and national security.
Operational technology,
Mm.
OT. What
Yeah.
exactly does that encompass? Is that different from regular IT?
Yeah, OT, or operational technology, refers to the hardware and software used to monitor and control physical processes, devices, and infrastructure. So think industrial control systems, SCADA systems used in utilities or manufacturing.
Ah, okay. The
Okay.
stuff that actually makes things happen in the physical world.
Exactly. And securing that data and those systems is vital because an attack there could mean turning off power, disrupting water supplies, or interfering with transport real-world, potentially catastrophic consequences.
So a single vulnerability, one successful breach, can have these massive ripple effects, from devastating individual lives through identity theft to undermining public confidence and potentially even threatening the actual functioning of critical national systems.
The stakes simply couldn't be higher. It's serious stuff.
That paints a very clear picture of why governments are such big targets.
Right.
Now let's talk about how they are targeted. What does this threat landscape actually look like? It sounds incredibly complex.
It is a complex environment, absolutely. And the information we've looked at points to a wide variety of threats, both external and internal.
Okay.
On the external side, we're constantly seeing sophisticated cybercrime. These attackers aren't using simple methods anymore. They're continually evolving their tactics, using advanced technologies to find and exploit vulnerabilities to breach systems.
So it's an arms race, basically.
It really is, which requires government agencies to deploy equally advanced, constantly updated defenses.
And ransomware is always in the news. Is that a major tactic against governments too?
Oh, absolutely. Ransomware attacks are a prominent external threat that governments are frequently facing. This is where attackers encrypt an agency's data and systems and then demand payment, usually in crypto, to restore access.
Designed to cripple them.
Exactly, to cripple operations and force a payout. But that's just one type of deliberate attack. We also see malware, malicious software designed to infiltrate systems and live hacking, where attackers actively explore and exploit network weaknesses in real time.
So direct attacks designed to infiltrate or disable systems. What about less sophisticated methods, like just trying to guess passwords?
Ah, yes. We also see methods like brute force attacks, where attackers literally try every possible combination to guess passwords or encryption keys.
Sounds tedious, but I guess effective sometimes.
It can be against weak passwords. And then there's credential stuffing, where they use lists of stolen usernames and passwords from other breaches.
Ah, from other websites that got hacked.
Right. And they try those credentials on governance systems, assuming people reuse passwords across different sites, which, unfortunately, many people do. These require significant computational power, but can be effective against weaker defenses or reused credentials.
Okay, so you have these very deliberate technical attacks.
Yeah.
But not all threats are digital or even intentional, are they? Like you mentioned, natural disasters.
That's a crucial distinction the information brings up. We can't forget non-deliberate external threats like natural disasters, fires, floods, earthquakes. These can cause significant physical damage to facilities, servers, and even, physical document archives.
Right. Paper records still exist.
They do, and even digital systems rely on physical hardware that can be destroyed.
And the physical security measures mentioned were quite specific. Things like fire-resistant cabinets and waterproof designs.
Yes, and the key takeaway there is that implementing physical security measures, smoke detectors, fire suppression systems, building materials designed to withstand environmental hazards is vital.
Sure.
But just as important as having them is ensuring they're regularly tested and maintained. A fire door that doesn't close properly or a sprinkler system that hasn't been checked in years offers basically no protection when you actually need it.
Good point. Okay, what about vulnerabilities that come through, like connections to other organizations, partners, or suppliers?
That brings us to supply chain attacks. Government agencies don't operate in a vacuum. They rely on a vast network of suppliers, vendors, and contractors for everything from software development to IT support to, physical services.
Right.
This reliance significantly increases the risk because an attack on a third-party vendor, even one seemingly unrelated to core functions, can become a weak link, allowing attackers access to government systems or data.
So you have to worry about the security, too.
Exactly. Protecting the entire supply chain is now essential. We even saw mentions of how understanding trends in supply chain attacks and potentially using AI could give an advantage in identifying these risks early.
So it's not enough to just lock down your own network. You have to worry about the security practices of basically everyone you do business with who touches your systems or data.
It's like building a fortress but leaving a small side door open because your delivery person has a key and you don't know if they lock it.
Yeah, okay.
Now, not all threats come from the outside, of course. Internal threats are a major concern as well.
You mean like disgruntled employees or contractors with inside access?
Yeah.
That sounds particularly dangerous.
It is. Insider threats, whether they're malicious or purely accidental, are significant. An individual who already has legitimate access to systems or sensitive data can cause immense damage, either intentionally stealing or altering data,
Or just making a mistake.
or inadvertently exposing it.
Right.
Mitigating this requires strict access controls the principle of least privilege, ensuring people only have access to the information they absolutely need for their job,
Makes sense.
and robust monitoring systems to detect suspicious activity from within the network, not just looking at the perimeter.
And you mentioned human error specifically, so not everyone with inside access is malicious. Sometimes it's just a mistake.
Human error is a huge factor. Staff can inadvertently expose sensitive information. This might be clicking on a really convincing phishing email.
We've all seen those.
Exactly. Or sending data to the wrong recipient, misconfiguring a server firewall, or even just losing a physical device like a laptop or USB drive.
Oh yeah, lost devices. That seems like a classic one.
It happens. And misconfiguration, where systems are set up incorrectly, leaving them vulnerable, is a surprisingly common pathway for attackers. These unintentional actions play a significant part in internal threats and absolutely underscore the critical importance of comprehensive and ongoing staff training.
So the threats are really coming from every direction. Sophisticated external attacks, natural disasters, vulnerabilities in partner networks, and threats from within, both malicious and accidental. It really is a multi-front battle for these agencies.
It truly is. And despite the best efforts, when these layered defenses fail, the real-world impact is immediate and often devastating.
Let's delve into that impact then.
Yeah.
The list of data breaches we've seen is, frankly, kind of alarming. It brings home the sheer scale of the problem. We started with that TxDOT example affecting 300,000 crash records recently.
Yeah, that Texas Department of Transportation breach from June 2025 is a concrete, recent example showing that even specific, regional data sets held by government can be targets. But that's just one state agency and one type of data. The scale can be much, much larger.
The numbers we've seen from other examples are just astronomical. Mind-boggling.
What's fascinating, or maybe terrifying, here is the scale of exposure we're now seeing regularly. We looked at reports of the National Public Data Incident in 2024 exposing personal information potentially for nearly 3 billion people.
Billion. Would it be?
That's what was reported. Then the India ICMR breach in 2023 impacting over 815 million records. The Shanghai National Police Database breach in 2022 reportedly affecting 1 billion records due to an unsecured database. These aren't small incidents. They represent a fundamental compromise of vast populations' private information.
And this isn't a new phenomenon either, right? We saw examples from over a decade ago that were massive, even by older standards.
Exactly. The U.S. Office of Personnel Management, OPM, breach in 2015 exposed sensitive records for 21.5 million federal employees and contractors, background check info, really sensitive stuff.
Yeah, I remember that one. Huge deal.
Huge deal. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs losing a laptop back in 2006 with data on 26.5 million veterans illustrating that risk of lost or stolen physical media.
Wow, 2006.
The U.S. National Archives and Records Administration saw 76 million military veterans records exposed in 2009, also due to lost media. And that South Carolina Department of Revenue breach in 2012 affecting 6.4 million records was a prime example of a devastating insider job.
So it runs the gamut of causes.
It does. These incidents, spanning years, show the variety of government entities affected and the range of methods used: hacking, lost or stolen media, insider threats, poor security configurations, ransomware, even those brute force and credential stuffing attacks we mentioned.
And it's not limited to government, obviously. We see these colossal numbers in the private sector, too, like the Yahoo breach affecting 3 billion accounts back in 2013, or the Capital One breach of 106 million customers in 2019. This just illustrates the pervasive nature of data exposure we're all dealing with.
Yeah, breaches like Ticketmaster 560 million reported in 2024, AT&T 110 million in 2024, Dell 49 million in 2024, Equifax 143 million back in 2017.
Equifax was a big one.
Huge, often resulting from hacking, poor security, misconfiguration, ransomware, or compromised credentials. Like the Snowflake incident potentially affecting up to 165 of their customer companies because the attackers used credentials stolen from those customers, not Snowflake itself.
Right, so a weakness in one place can cascade?
These examples, government or private, underscore the sheer amount of our data that is potentially out there floating around.
It really drives home how interconnected and, frankly, vulnerable our digital identities are. A failure in one place, even a service provider, can have enormous downstream consequences for individuals.
And for a truly high-stakes example involving extremely sensitive data, we saw the Pentagon breach mentioned for 2025 involving over 92,000 records. While smaller in number than some others, this was critical, high-security data apparently attributed to an internal compromise exploiting a zero-day vulnerability.
Whoa, okay, zero-day vulnerability, what exactly does that mean? Sounds serious.
It is serious. A zero-day vulnerability is a security flaw in software or hardware that is unknown to the vendor or the security community when it's first discovered by attackers.
So there's 0 days notice for the good guys to fix it.
Exactly. The vendor hasn't had time to develop and release a patch. Attackers can exploit it before anyone knows it exists, making these vulnerabilities incredibly dangerous and very hard to defend against with conventional methods like just patching systems.
Okay, that makes sense. So exploiting a previously unknown flaw inside the Pentagon network is obviously extremely serious. Let's circle back to something you highlighted earlier as particularly sensitive: driver's licenses. Why are these specific pieces of data so valuable to criminals, and what specifically can they do once they have that information?
Yeah, this raises an important question about the different values criminals place on different types of stolen data. What's really striking here is the data point suggesting driver's license records can sell for as much as $20 a piece on the dark web.
$20 for one license record.
That's the reported figure. Compare that to the reported average of maybe $1 for a stolen credit card number.
20 times more valuable than a credit card. That's shocking. Why? Why such a massive difference?
Well, the key insight here is how a driver's license functions in our society. You use it for far more than just driving, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's a primary form of identification used to cash checks, board planes, enter secure buildings, prove your age.
Right.
And the reason it's so trusted is that to get one in the first place, you typically have to present multiple other forms of highly verified identity, like a birth certificate, social security card, maybe a passport.
Okay. So the license itself is proof you've already jumped through those hoops.
Exactly. A driver's license essentially acts as a government-issued key that vouches for your identity because it's based on other foundational documents. Criminals know this.
Okay, so it's like the master key criminals want because it's been pre-vetted by the government. What specific kinds of fraud does this enable that, say, just a stolen credit card wouldn't allow?
Well, once criminals possess your driver's license information, the number, your name, address, date of birth, the possibilities for fraud expand dramatically. They can create high-quality counterfeit physical licenses.
Like actual fake IDs that look real?
Yeah, increasingly sophisticated ones. These fake licenses can then be used for a wide range of serious crimes. They can use them to walk into a bank and open new bank accounts or credit card accounts in your name. They can use them to cash fake checks, often passing them off as legitimate because they have what appears to be valid ID.
And you mentioned obtaining medical care using another identity. That's truly disturbing.
It is. They can use a counterfeit ID or simply your stolen license information to obtain medical services in your name. This can lead to inaccurate medical records for you, potentially racking up huge bills under your name, or even receiving treatment intended for you, which could be dangerous. It's a form of medical identity theft. They
Wow.
can also use your information, sometimes combined with fabricated details, to create entirely new synthetic identities.
Synthetic identities. What's that?
This is a complex type of fraud that's really hard to detect. They mix real information, like your social security number or driver's license details, with fake information, like a made-up name or address, to create a brand new identity that doesn't actually belong to any single real person. Then they build credit under this fake identity.
Wow, synthetic identity theft. That sounds incredibly complicated to even unravel.
It is a real headache for banks and individuals. And beyond financial and medical fraud, fake driver's licenses are also used by criminals to conceal their own criminal activities.
I see.
For example, if they are stopped by law enforcement for a traffic violation or something more serious, they might present a counterfeit license with your information to avoid being identified or apprehended, especially if they have outstanding warrants.
Which can lead to the actual victim, the person whose data was stolen, facing unwarranted arrest or receiving a summons for something they didn't do, just like that example we saw of the woman who faced those exact consequences.
Precisely. It directly implicates the innocent victim in criminal actions they had absolutely no part in. And remember, even other seemingly less sensitive information on the license, your birth date, height, eye color, your signature can be used in conjunction with other data criminals find online to create a more convincing impersonation for online accounts or other verification steps.
So a data breach involving driver's licenses is a profoundly serious event. It's not just financial risk. It's a direct attack on the core components of your personal identity and can lead to all sorts of legal nightmares.
It is absolutely one of the most valuable and versatile pieces of data for enabling widespread fraud. Understanding why it's so valuable truly emphasizes the criticality of protecting it.
Okay. Given these pervasive threats and the severe consequences when defenses fail, what can government agencies actually do? It sounds like traditional security measures clearly aren't sufficient anymore in this kind of environment.
You're absolutely right. It demands a move beyond traditional sort of siloed security measures. Effective security today really requires integrating robust, layered defenses across their entire digital and physical infrastructure.
Right.
And that's regardless of whether systems are managed internally or by third parties. The key concept here is a fail-safe, multi-layer protection framework.
Multi-layer.
Yeah.
Why is adding layers so crucial? Is it just redundancy?
It's more than just redundancy. What's critical here is the recognition that no single security measure is 100% effective on its own, especially against sophisticated and, constantly evolving threats.
Okay.
By combining multiple layers of physical and digital security, you create a much more resilient defense. If an attacker manages to bypass one layer, say, they get through the firewall, they're immediately met with another layer, maybe strong authentication or endpoint detection.
Right, it slows them down.
It significantly increases the difficulty and the time required for a successful breach. And critically, it gives defenders more opportunities to detect and stop them before major damage is done. It's like having a moat, high walls, locked gates, and internal patrols, instead of just relying on one single lock on the front door.
That layered approach makes intuitive sense.
Mm.
What are some of the essential components of this framework, especially on the digital side, for safeguarding all those records we talked about?
Well, the information we've examined highlights several key digital components. First, robust backup and disaster recovery mechanisms are absolutely non-negotiable.
So you can get the data back if something happens.
Exactly. If data is lost due to hardware failure, a natural disaster, or encrypted by ransomware, you need reliable, tested, restorable backups to get back online quickly. Then, audit trails are essential for security and accountability logging, who accessed what data and when.
So you can see what happened after the fact.
Or detect suspicious activity as it's happening. It allows agencies to investigate incidents or pinpoint the source of a leak. Strong access controls are vital.
We mentioned that for insider threats.
Right. Ensuring only authorized personnel can view, modify, or delete sensitive information based on their role. The principle of least privilege. And advanced encryption is critical.
Encryption, it's scrambling the data so only authorized people can read it. Makes it useless if stolen.
Essentially, yes. Data should be encrypted both in transit as it moves across networks and at rest when it's stored on servers or devices. This means even if a database file is stolen, the data within it is unreadable gibberish without the correct decryption key.
Okay. And selecting the right technology and partners seems like a huge decision for these agencies. How do they know who to trust?
It is a huge decision. When agencies work with cloud software providers or acquire new systems, it's essential to choose vendors with documented proof of their system security and compliance with recognized standards.
Like certifications.
Exactly. SOC 2 compliance, for example, is a big one. It indicates that a service provider has been audited by an independent third party and meets specific trust principles related to security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. It provides an independent assessment of their security controls, so the agency isn't just taking the vendor's word for it.
Right, third-party validation. Okay, speaking of comprehensive approaches, the concept of a platform approach for security came up. How does that differ from older methods of just buying different security tools?
Yeah, the platform approach represents a shift. It means moving away from using disparate, standalone security tools for different areas. One tool for email security, another for network monitoring, another for protecting servers, and so on.
Which sounds complicated to manage.
It can be very complicated and leave gaps. Instead, the platform approach advocates for a unified system that integrates security across all the critical domains where data exists and threats can emerge.
Yeah.
Email, network, applications, the cloud, operational technology, OT, and endpoints like laptops and phones.
So instead of managing 6 different security systems with 6 different dashboards, you have one integrated view, one control panel.
Ideally, yes, or at least much tighter integration and data sharing between the components. The advantages are significant. You get improved visibility across all your assets and potential threat vectors.
See the whole picture.
Right, which allows agencies to detect and respond to threats much more quickly and accurately. It helps ensure that no vulnerabilities are overlooked because you have that holistic perspective. It also reduces the complexity of managing numerous different systems, which can lead to more streamlined operations and potentially better allocation of limited security resources and personnel.
Let's break down why covering those specific domains you listed is so important. Email, for example, why start there?
Well, email is consistently a primary vector for initial compromise. Phishing attacks often start with an email. So protecting against phishing and other email-based threats is absolutely vital, especially considering reports indicating phishing was the top method scammers used to contact people in 2024.
Makes sense. A successful phish can open the door.
Exactly. It can lead to compromised credentials or malware infection, giving attackers their first foothold.
And networks are just getting more complex, harder to monitor everything.
They are. Network security is about detecting and responding to threats in real time as they move through the agency's internal infrastructure. Protecting sensitive applications where citizens or employees interact directly with data is crucial for maintaining operational continuity and data integrity. And securing dynamic cloud environments is a growing priority as agencies increasingly leverage cloud computing.
Which have their own security challenges.
Definitely. They have different security considerations than traditional on-premise data centers.
And the OT, we talk about the critical infrastructure systems. Those seem especially challenging because they often use older legacy technology. Right?
They often do, which adds complexity. But securing those essential services like energy and water is paramount for public safety and national security. It might mean finding clever ways to layer modern security controls on top of or around those legacy systems without disrupting their core function.
Okay. And finally, endpoints.
Endpoints protecting the laptops, desktops, and mobile devices government employees use. These are often vulnerable entry points for malware and targeted attacks, especially with remote work being more common. A platform approach aims to provide integrated protection across all these critical areas.
What about cutting-edge tech? How do things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, AI, and ML fit into enhancing government security? Is that hype or reality?
It's definitely becoming a reality. What's fascinating here is how these emerging technologies are being leveraged to move beyond purely reactive security postures. AI and ML are being integrated into security features to analyze massive data sets, network traffic logs, system activity logs, threat intelligence feeds from around the world.
Looking for patterns.
Exactly. They can identify subtle patterns indicative of malicious activity that might be completely missed by human analysts just looking at dashboards. This allows systems to predict potential breaches before they fully develop.
Predict them? Wow.
Or at least detect them much earlier. And they can trigger automatic responses like isolating an infected machine from the network, leading to faster and more accurate threat mitigation. This is essential for keeping pace with increasingly automated attacks from adversaries.
So it's about using technology to not just react faster, but maybe anticipate and respond at machine speed before humans even notice.
That's the goal, yeah. Now, while technology is foundational, implementing effective security also requires a deep understanding of the agency's specific records ecosystem. Meaning the types of records they hold, their classifications based on sensitivity, public versus confidential versus secret, and how those records flow through different workflows and systems. This kind of assessment helps ensure the right security measures are applied at every stage of the record's lifecycle.
Like automatically scanning a document for viruses the moment it's first ingested into a system, before it goes anywhere else.
That's a perfect example. Apply security right at the beginning. And we absolutely cannot stress enough the human element in all of this.
Training.
Yes. The information we've seen repeatedly highlights the critical importance of employee training. Well-trained staff who are aware of phishing risks, understand secure data handling practices, and know the proper procedures for reporting incidents are arguably the first line of defense.
They could stop an attack before it even starts.
Potentially, yes. And providing additional specialized security sensitization for technical staff, the IT folks, the developers, is also vital, as they are the custodians of the systems themselves and need to build and maintain them securely.
So it's this really complex blend of sophisticated technology, well-defined processes based on understanding the data, and continuously trained people, all working together in layers. It's a significant undertaking for any agency, big or small.
It absolutely is.
But even with the best defenses, as we've seen, breaches can and do happen. So when that terrifying notification arrives in your inbox or mailbox saying your data might have been compromised, what should an individual listener actually do? What are the practical steps?
Right. This is where the focus shifts directly to the steps you can take to protect yourself when your data has potentially been exposed. Based on the information available, the most crucial first step is to monitor your financial accounts and credit reports diligently. Become your own watchdog.
Why is monitoring so important immediately after a breach notification? Does it actually stop fraud?
It doesn't stop the initial exposure, obviously, but staying hyper-aware of your accounts helps you spot unusual or unexpected activity as early as possible. Detecting fraudulent transactions, unfamiliar accounts opened in your name, or even sudden changes to your address or contact information allows you to report or investigate them promptly, limiting the potential damage.
Okay, so what should people be checking regularly?
You should regularly check your bank accounts checking, savings, your credit card statements, any investment accounts online. And importantly, check your credit reports. You're entitled to free reports from each of the three major bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, typically once a year through annualcreditreport.com.
Annualcreditreport.com. Okay. And what are you looking for on those reports?
Look for accounts you don't recognize, inquiries from lenders you didn't authorize, meaning someone might have applied for credit in your name, or any inaccurate personal information like addresses you haven't lived at.
Okay, so constant monitoring is step one. Vigilance. What else can we do with the credit bureaus? I think you mentioned fraud alerts.
Yes. You have a legal right to initiate a fraud alert with the credit bureaus. The process is designed to be relatively simple. When you place a fraud alert with one of the three major bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, that bureau is required by law to notify the other two, so the alert gets applied across all three of your main credit files.
And what exactly does having a fraud alert active do? Does it block anything?
It doesn't block applications, but an active fraud alert flags your credit file. When a lender or creditor pulls your report for a new credit application in your name, the alert notifies them that you may be a victim of identity theft or fraud.
Okay.
This requires them to take additional reasonable steps to verify the identity of the person applying for credit before they issue that new credit. It makes it harder for a fraudster to just walk in and get a loan.
How long does it last?
A standard initial fraud alert lasts for 1 year, but you can renew it. If you provide a copy of an official identity theft report, which you can get from law enforcement or the FTC, you can request an extended fraud alert that lasts for 7 years.
Okay, so it doesn't stop someone from applying, but it makes it much harder for them to actually get approved without extra verification. A good hurdle.
Exactly. It adds a significant speed bump to the process for potential fraudsters. Now, there is a stronger option available, which is freezing or locking your credit file.
A freeze. Is that significantly different from a fraud alert? Sounds more drastic.
It is, yes. A security freeze is a much more restrictive measure, although it can also be less convenient for you sometimes. A security freeze, when placed with a credit bureau, completely restricts access to your credit report at that bureau for most purposes, including opening new credit.
So, unlike an alert, which just warns lenders, a freeze actually blocks them from seeing the report.
Generally, yes. A freeze means lenders typically cannot access your credit report to approve new credit applications at all.
So, a criminal couldn't open a new credit card or get a loan in my name if my credit is frozen.
That's the primary benefit, and why it's considered the strongest protection against new account fraud. Because the lender can't pull your credit report to assess your creditworthiness, the application typically won't proceed.
What's the downside? The inconvenience part.
The inconvenience is that if you want to apply for legitimate credit, a new credit card, a mortgage, a car loan, or even sometimes things like renting an apartment or getting certain jobs might require a credit check, you have to temporarily unfreeze or thaw your credit file before the lender can access it.
Ah, okay. So you have to remember to lift the freeze yourself.
Right. You typically need to place and manage freezes separately with each of the three major credit bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Some services also offer a credit lock, like Credit Lock, which functions similarly to a freeze but often provides an easier mobile app or online interface for quickly locking and unlocking your file as needed, sometimes for a fee.
Okay, so monitoring, fraud alerts, or the stronger option of freezing or locking credit are key defensive steps regarding your credit file. What about direct attempts to scam you using the exposed data itself? Phishing.
Absolutely. Data breaches make you a prime target for increasingly sophisticated scams, particularly phishing attempts. Criminals use the exposed data, your name, address, phone number, maybe even details about accounts you have with certain companies, to make their phishing emails, texts, or even phone calls look incredibly legitimate and personalized to you.
To make you lower your guard.
Exactly. Their goal is to trick you into revealing more sensitive information, like passwords or answers to security questions, providing financial account details, or clicking malicious links that install malware or ransomware on your device.
How can we spot these convincing phishing attempts? What are the red flags we should all be looking for?
The information provides some really clear signs to watch out for. Be extremely suspicious of messages that create a sense of urgency or use threatening language. Things like, "Your account will be closed immediately. Act now or lose access," or "This is your final chance." Attackers use fear and urgency to make you act without thinking.
Right, the panic button.
Check the sender's email address very carefully. It might look similar to a real company's address but have a subtle typo, or use a slightly different domain name like .co instead of .com, or come from a weird public domain like Gmail.
Okay, subtle differences.
Be wary of unexpected attachments, especially from companies you don't usually receive documents from electronically. And a huge red flag is requests for information the sender should already possess, like your bank emailing you out of the blue asking for your full account number or your social security number. Legitimate companies usually don't do that insecurely via email.
That makes perfect sense. If my bank is contacting me about my account, they definitely already have my account number. They shouldn't need to ask me for it again.
Exactly. So, to protect yourself proactively against phishing, make sure you have reputable security software installed on your computers and smartphones, and crucially, set it to update automatically.
Why automatic updates?
Because those critical security updates include protection against the latest known malware, viruses, and newly discovered phishing sites. Manual updates often get forgotten. Also, whenever possible, enable multi-factor authentication or MFA on your online accounts.
That second step, like a code from your phone.
Right. MFA requires a second verification step beyond just your password, like a code sent to your phone, an authenticator app code, or a physical security key. It makes it much, much harder for criminals to access your account, even if they somehow manage to steal your password.
Okay. What should someone do if they get an email or text message that looks suspicious, but they aren't totally sure if it's fake? Maybe it could be real.
That's a common dilemma. If you receive a message you suspect is phishing but aren't sure, the most important rule is do not click any links, open any attachments, or use any contact information provided in that suspicious message itself.
Don't trust anything in the message.
Correct. If you think the message could be from a real company you do business with, contact that company directly to verify. But use a method you know is legitimate. Find their official phone number or website address yourself by typing it into your browser, not clicking a link from the email, or look on a past statement or bill you've received. Call them or log into your account through their official site and ask them if they actually sent the message you received.
So go around the suspicious message, basically.
Precisely. Assume any links or attachments in the suspicious message are malicious until proven otherwise. They are often designed to install harmful malware or steal your login credentials the moment you click them.
And if you think you've already messed up,
Yeah.
maybe clicked a link or gave out some information, what then?
Okay. If you suspect you've clicked a link or opened an attachment that might have downloaded harmful software, the first thing to do is immediately update your computer security software, run a full system scan, and follow its instructions to remove anything it identifies as malicious. Disconnect from the internet while scanning if possible.
Okay, scan and clean.
If you believe a scammer has obtained sensitive personal information like your social security number, credit card number, or bank account number, you should visit identitytheft.gov. That's the federal government's central resource. They provide specific recovery steps tailored to the type of information that may have been compromised.
Identitytheft.gov.
Got it. Reporting these attempts seems important too, right? Not just for yourself, but to help the authorities track down the scammers.
It is absolutely crucial. Reporting helps fight these crimes and protect others. You can forward suspected phishing emails to the Anti-Phishing Working Group at reportphishing@apwg.org.
Report phishing at apwg.org.
Suspicious text messages, those annoying spam texts, can be forwarded to spam, which is the number 7726.
Just type 7726.
Yep, just forward the message to 7726. And you should report any phishing attempt or other fraud attempts to the Federal Trade Commission at reportfraud.ftc.gov. Your report goes into a database used by law enforcement agencies to build cases and identify trends.
Okay, that's a really comprehensive set of steps individuals can take. It's empowering, in a way. It's a powerful reminder that while government agencies bear immense responsibility for protecting our data, we also have a vital role to play in our own security and in being vigilant, especially after a breach notification. Absolutely, it's a shared ecosystem of risk and responsibility. And as we look ahead, it's clear that this isn't a static problem. It's not like we fix it once and we're done.
Yeah, the threats are constantly evolving, right? Just like the security measures have to evolve.
They are. The need to stay ahead of the curve is constant. Governments, and really individuals too, need to continuously stay informed about new developments in the cybersecurity world.
Keep learning.
Exactly. This means regularly updating security protocols and software, investing in advanced technologies like those AI-powered detection systems we talked about, and crucially, fostering a culture of continuous learning and adaptation among staff and citizens alike. Security awareness can't be a one-time training session.
So there's no final victory, really, just a continuous process of vigilance, adaptation, and improvement on all sides.
Precisely. Robust, multi-layered security, proactive monitoring, and an educated, aware user base are not just good practices in this environment, they are essential requirements for navigating today's dynamic and often dangerous digital landscape.
This deep dive has certainly covered a vast amount of ground. We've explored why the sensitive and valuable nature of government data makes it such a prime target for attack. We detailed the really diverse threats agencies face, everything from sophisticated nation-state hacking down to simple human error and even natural disasters. We examined the significant impact of breaches, including those specific and severe risks associated with exposed data like driver's licenses that was eye-opening.
Yeah.
We discussed the importance of layered security strategies and advanced technology for agencies trying to defend this data. And finally, we outlined the crucial, actionable steps that you, the listener, must take to protect yourself when your data is inevitably exposed in one of these breaches.
It truly underscores the complexity of protecting public data in an increasingly digital and interconnected world. It's a massive challenge.
It certainly does put things into perspective. Thinking about the sheer scale and the increasing frequency of these data breaches affecting government and other massive organizations, here's something for you, the listener, to consider as we wrap up. How much of our personal information can we realistically expect to remain truly secure in this digital age? And maybe, what level of data exposure should we, as citizens, anticipate and prepare for as just a baseline reality moving forward?
That's a challenging thought.
It's a challenging thought, maybe a slightly uncomfortable one, but perhaps one we all need to grapple with in today's world.
Indeed.
And this deep dive was brought to you by Stonefly. They're a leader in enterprise storage, backup and disaster recovery, AI storage, and cloud solutions. If your organization is looking for secure, ransomware-proof storage solutions, including crucial technologies like air-gapped storage for physical separation and immutable storage to prevent data tampering, you can contact sales at stonefly.com to schedule a demo. See how Stonefly can help protect your critical data assets. That's sales@stonefly.com.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it provided some valuable insights into the challenges of protecting public data and, importantly, what steps can be taken.
Thank you. It was definitely an important discussion to have.